Hey, chatters.
Hey, chatters.
Welcome to our chatter episode.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're following on from our 20th episode. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yes.
We
Cool.
are celebrating 20 episodes on the podcast, and this is our little extra check-in, get to know us, see where we're at.
And what we're doing. Yeah.
So we thought we would talk about what we have found helpful recently, what resources that have been feeding into our relationship, into our lives, what we've been navigating, and share those with you guys.
Mm-hmm. And first off, I reckon probably one of the best things that's been feeding into my life since that is the conversations with you guys, like feeding into these topics and, you know, sharing your stories and asking questions and because we're not experts, you know, we're not experts in saying like, oh, relationships should look like this. It's not that. It's a matter of having the conversation, you know, like just unpacking things, hearing other people's stories and discovering what that could look like is being quite big. So anyway, that's been my big thing straight off the bat is just having these conversations with you guys and just having your support has been really, really encouraging. Yeah, it's been great.
I also find it funny because almost every time we have an episode, within that week, I'll have the same conversation. Yeah. Like before it's come out, I'll have the same conversation with multiple people.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because it's on my brain, and we've spoken about that before, when you see what you like are thinking about. Yeah. But it's always, it seems to be just like every time.
Yeah.
And it's really reinforcing and it's good.
Yeah. So 20 episodes. What is something that what has been a huge value or biggest value for you from doing these?
What's been the biggest value add? Is that what you're saying? Like, what has it given me? It's given me confidence, honestly, I really struggle to voice my opinions outside of you or my family. I struggle to voice my opinions confidently on a public platform because there's so much that you can do wrong. Yeah, like you were just like scrutinized. And so I'm very scared of saying the wrong thing. But this podcast has actually helped me be like, actually, no, I feel really strongly about this. And it's okay if people don't agree with me. But I also want to be able to communicate what I believe to be true in this area. And I have a lot of really strong opinions about relationships. And that doesn't mean I'm right. But I really appreciate how much I feel free to kind of voice those. I still, every now and then, I'm like, ooh, be careful with that one. But yes, those kinds of things, like there's every now and then, it's a good thing to have a check where you're like, ooh, how would this come across? Some people don't have that check at all and they just say whatever they think, whatever they think. But I do appreciate the freedom that I felt a little bit. Yeah.
That's cool. I think for me, I have just loved how our conversation has grown. You know, like yesterday we had a conversation. It was only something small, but it's been... You know, we identified when we were in New Zealand, you identified how one thing that you wrestle with is you need to control things, right? And it's quite a big thing because it's a big cause of your anxiety is the amount of control you might have over a situation. And then last night you were going to go out with some friends and you were getting ready. Toddler is just sick at the moment and just he's not happy. So I'm like, cool, I'll take him into the shower while you're getting ready just to try and occupy him because I didn't want to get him down into bed too early because then he's going to be in bed too early.
Hashtag parenting.
Yeah, stuff. And then he sat on my balls and really, really hard, like winded me sort of, like sat on my balls because it wasn't even just a sit. Because I sit on a stool when he's in the shower. I know this is too much information, but I'm going to do it anyway. I sit on a stool in the shower because I'm at his level. I can help me wash him and we just cuddle for a little bit and we play with these magnets that are in there and stuff. Anyway, he bent over to pick up a magnet, then headbutted the side of the shower and fell onto my testicles. And it was a crunch. So it was a lot of pain. You don't understand.
It's making me cringe and I don't understand.
Yeah. And so I was in a lot of pain. You took him out of the shower. He was so sweet though. He's like 1.5, right? Not even. And he's like, oh like
sorry.
Well, just like, are you okay? But in baby words. And so you took him out of the shower and I finally composed myself and came out as well. And you said that you were meant to get a lift last night with a friend and you cancelled that because you well, like I'll have to make sure everything's okay here first.
Get things under control, or sort it first or something.
And for me, I'm like, no, that's you taking control again. But it was it was a good conversation. It wasn't like accusing thing. It was like, no, you've identified this, and this is one of those situations. So I'm backing up the thing that you identified. And it was really, I really liked that conversation because it also identified it for me too. And it's like, what would I feel about this? Why do I have such an issue? I'm like, oh, you're actually, I want to be this husband for you. I know I'm capable. I can take care of the kids. I've done it for 7 years, right? You don't need to be here, and you're actually taking this opportunity away from me. And I wasn't offended, but I actually liked that we identified that so that we could have the conversation about that, and that was improvement. I really liked that conversation. So identifying these things, and then when we see it playing out, it's like we catch it, and we're going to work on this, and then you got your ride again, like you still got to lift with your mate. And I was so thankful for that because us hanging out with our friends is really important because it fills our cups, when we're with the kids all the time. And I hang out with people a lot more than you do, either online with work or friends or whatever else, or seeing them in person. And you don't. So you going out is a really important thing. So even you getting an extra 10 minutes in the car with one person is still a very important thing. So for you to be able to do that was great. And I loved that we could do that.
Yeah, it was good because I appreciated you identifying it, because when I get into that anxious state, I don't sit there and think, I think I'm feeling triggered right now.
Yeah.
And the control thing's a sneaky one, because it's not like me being like, no, I need to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, it literally is like, if I don't do this, everything will fall apart.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to have to do it, but I feel like I have to. And so when you were like, this is the control thing, and you're like, I'm going to be fine. It was good because it helped. I think it helped calibrate you. So you were like, oh, I can be fine, and I will be fine.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the balls thing either, by the way. It was like the kids were losing it. The baby had been losing it. As I took him out of the shower, he peed all over me. And like half my hair was curled, and she was meant to be there in 10 minutes. It was like everything. So that's why I was like, yeah. But yeah, it was good because you were like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, he can do this.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do it.
It was a breath for both of us. Because I could easily still get overwhelmed in that moment. But I stepped up to another level because I'm like, no, I need to do this, so it helped us both in that. But even through other conversations, it's been like, even for example, you not letting yourself be sick, like feeling like you have to be there for everyone else. I'm like, the day you had COVID, a couple of days you had COVID, and you just went and you were in the bedroom for the whole day. I'm like, I love that. I love that you can actually do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you let me, because I got COVID just after you. And it was really nice to have COVID and lie in the bedroom for a day. Like, that was real. We haven't done that well.
Let's do COVID again. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Yeah. No. It was very refreshing to be able to just be sick. Yeah. And this is the thing, guys. This is why these conversations about mental load, these conversations about what goes on for you is so important, because so often we just fall into these patterns and you don't identify it. And like, you didn't know that I was struggling to just be sick until we had that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you were like, whoa.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't feel like I didn't even feel valid in that. It wasn't like I was like, oh, he has no idea I'm struggling to be sick. It was like there's this innate thing that was like, you can't be sick.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be sick. And so, and until we had that conversation, I wasn't like, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. And so that's why these conversations are so important.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'll just fall into ruts and you won't identify them, and people will just burn out. Yeah.
The other thing too, so we wanted to share with you guys, we've been reading a couple of books recently. We just wanted to share as a potential resource for you too, if that's something that you like doing as a couple. One book, you can tell us the first one that we've actually finished.
The other thing too is we want to share some of these resources purely, firstly because if they're helpful for you, awesome. But also because we would love you guys to share your resources. So if there's things that you've found helpful in your relationships, or even just in your personal development, that you're like, oh, actually, this has been really great for me, please send them through. We would love to hear that. So the book that we actually read it while we were in New Zealand is Sam and Nia, Love in Truth. And you may have seen on Netflix it was trending for weeks, documentary called The Ashley Madison I think it was just called Ashley Madison. And it was all about the Ashley Madison leak. And there's a vlogging couple that I actually had been following before the Ashley Madison leak back in, I think it was 2015. And he was found on the leak. And that led them to this huge journey of working through infidelity and a whole bunch of stuff that went with that. So they've written a book. They were featured in that documentary. They're still together. They're still together, amazingly. And I've been following their stories on socials as well a little bit. And it's been really interesting. After I watched the Netflix documentary, I told the story to Blair. And we thought we would read their book and just kind of see a bit more of their journey, because it's not a common one.
No.
And it's not even one that I would say I subscribe to necessarily. It's not one that I'm like, everyone should do this if they're facing the situation. But because it's so uncommon, I think it was just a bit like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
I'm really curious about how their journey panned out after that. So we read that in New Zealand. We started it in New Zealand.
And we finished it
it here. I'm actually still going. Blair's finished. He read faster than me. He did very well. Right. But really interesting insight into the journey through infidelity. And most of the world's going to tell you, that's it.
Yeah,
you're done.
A cheater, always a cheater.
Cut them off.
That stuff, yeah.
But as we talk about over and over and over on the podcast, people don't just wake up and decide to be horrible people. There is so much that goes into it. Doesn't excuse the behavior.
Never.
Ever.
Never.
And I would never face someone like Nia, the wife, in this situation and say, but you should probably just work through it.
Yeah.
That's their journey that they've decided to do. Interesting take. Not everyone's cup of tea, but I think reading someone's journey and observing what it was for them is really valuable, regardless of what you would do in that situation. A really valuable exercise. So that was an interesting read.
Yeah, I liked it from the perspective of, we wouldn't agree with everything that they've done or said or the way they've gone about it, whatever. But good for them. They seem like they're in a great place. But through a very, very horrible situation. But for me, from the guy's perspective, what am I putting in place? What are the things? I don't want to be naive to this sort of a thing. So what are we putting in place? What am I putting in place to never, ever go even close to that line or that road? So it was just that wake-up call, because again, was so intentional. Reading that story, being challenged in that way, asking myself the question, how am I going in that area? Am I giving Amy any room for doubt or lack of trust or anything? It just started a lot of questions for myself, which was good. So it was less about their story and more about mine, if that makes sense, in the way that I read it. So it was just very challenging and it created a lot of questions for myself. Yeah.
Not everyone's style, not Blair's style, but that's fine. He read it and I'm really impressed.
Yeah.
Because he did better than me.
And I'll tell you what, like whatever you think of the story and the situation, man, being vulnerable like that, it takes guts. Yeah. Like I am nowhere near as vulnerable as they were on the podcast. Like I'm nowhere near as vulnerable as them, but as vulnerable as I am, it's still hard, right? And they went 10 times level above what I've done. Yeah. And
one of the things that really stood out to me, and I know it did to you too, is their kind of thing that eventually, when everything comes out in the story, is to live in truth and just the importance of, regardless of the consequences, in a loving way, like not just like spitting out your negative truth everywhere because you're opinionated, but he gets this real conviction to be like, I need to tell her what I've done.
Yeah, live in truth.
And he would have known
something that's really stuck to me. Live in truth.
Yeah, and he would have known that would likely have resulted in him losing his family. It didn't. It did for a time. Like they've gone through a whole bunch of stuff in, I think it's like almost 10 years now, but he felt convicted to do that and he did it. And the one thing that I'm kind of in that section of the book at the moment, and he's just talking about the freedom, even though it's horrible, but the freedom and what that releases in you in terms of letting go of some of these things that just you're stuck in, being able to be vulnerable, live in truth, bravely, is huge. So that's been a huge challenge from that book.
Yeah.
So that was Sam and Nia. Love
in truth.
Love in truth.
in Love in Truth.
Love and Truth.
Love and Truth.
Then Blair started another one because he finished so quickly.
Yeah. So I'm reading another one called The Mastery of Love. Ooh, I'm going to be an expert. But I've only got about 2 chapters in, but it's very fascinating read so far, where it's talking about how, they paint this picture. I'll fast forward. It's quite intense, actually, in a good way. I love a challenge where I can self-reflect. But it's what they do is they paint this picture of like, all right, when we're kids, we are all about love. We don't have any baggage or anything else like that, like under 4, right? We don't have any baggage or anything. And then we learn baggage. We adopt that from everyone else. So whenever we go into a relationship, we're always bringing our baggage. So one thing, they paint this picture of, okay, picture you're on a planet. Everyone on the planet has a disease. And you live a life knowing that everyone else has the disease. So you still protect yourself from those diseases. So 1, we're damaged goods in a way. Like we've all got baggage. We've all got history. But 2, we live a life out of guardedness. So it's either out of attack or it's out of flight or it's out of all these different reactions and these things that we do is down to, well, we know that everyone else has disease as well. So 1, we have the disease, so we bring our baggage onto people and into a relationship. 2, we know everyone else has a disease, so we want to protect ourselves from their disease. So it's this like tension there. So that's pretty much where I've got up to, is that everyone's messed up to some level. But just the importance of us understanding that in terms of going into a relationship or being in a relationship, it's curiosity. Like you keep on saying, curiosity. Be curious about their baggage, helping us lower our walls and deal with our own disease. So, but it's been quite good so far. I'm actually really looking forward to getting into it. I've got a bunch of other ones that people have been recommending to me as well that I'll get into eventually.
And you get into it mostly on the toilet. So
yeah, so I'll go have a little toilet breaks.
To your toilet breaks.
They're really, really good.
Yeah, so these are the 2 books that have been feeding into it. Another thing we were just going to quickly say that's been kind of inputting into us is we've been exploring a lot the world of neurodivergence the last few weeks. It's been flagged with some of our kids, which has then flagged it for us.
We had assumptions for ourselves for that. Yeah.
And so there's no particular resource or anything, but again, it's just this conversation that comes up all the time now. I think it's just because I'm looking for it. I'm seeing this conversation everywhere. It's been really interesting to take a step back, and even though we've had these kind of hints that stuff might be there for us, also then like in interacting with our kids, kind of take a step back and be like, oh, hang on, this might be something more than we realize. And so that's been, for me, I found that interesting how that's affected how I'm interacting with them.
Absolutely.
Not that we have answers or structure around that at all. It's just been kind of something on our minds that we've started
We're in the curious stage.
Yeah.
Curiosity stage, finding out more and asking the questions, what do they need from us?
Yeah.
That's been a big thing with our kids. Am I filling their needs, because their needs are probably not what I assumed they were, so that's the curiosity stage that we're in at the moment. We've got tests that will come up in November, so it's not for a while, but we're just trying to explore as much as we can at the moment of what that looks like. I'm chatting with one of our chatters as well about their kids, so thank you so much. That's been just having a person that I can talk to about that knows, that has that experience. It just takes a lot of weight off that, you know what I mean? I'm not as lost as I used to feel and having that conversation, just knowing that there's someone else I can chat to about it has been great.
Yeah. So lots of input.
Yeah.
I feel like it's an input kind of week. And then Blair's become a chef, so he's been researching and getting resources for learning how to be the Blair from The Bear, the show on Disney Plus.
We're watching The Bear on Disney Plus.
Recommend that too.
So good.
Yeah. That's us.
That is us. So shoot in as well. I want to hear from you guys too on chat. You can chat to us on Patreon. I've started that channel on Patreon as well for us to keep the conversation going. Again, you guys, thank you so much for your support. The support to get the extra content is there for you. But we would love for your input into these into our podcast. So please send through chat. Jump onto the community chat on Patreon. send in some thoughts, some ideas of what would you like to see in this podcast. We're at 20 episodes now. We love that. We've hit the ground running, but we want to keep on growing and keep adapting and keep on bringing greater impact into the community that we've created here. So, please jump onto Patreon and start that chat.
Thanks, chatters.
Awesome. Good chat.
Bye.